Sure. So we don't necessarily target a certain population. So it's kind of equal parts as who finds us and who we find. And so actually recently we've had quite a few Congolese folks coming in with very limited English. And I speak Spanish, so I don't speak French. A lot of people speak French there. And a couple of other native languages, as you probably know. So if we were working, lots of education workshops, so lots of helping people acclimate a little bit to what it should be like in a workplace. Immigrants and low-wage workers are often exploited a lot more in the workplace than low-wage workers or non-immigrants, and so we do lots of education. So trying to get them to, first of all, learn about the center, find a home at the center, feel comfortable and gain trust at the center, and then coming and starting to participate and bringing their knowledge and their experience from their workplace and their life history to really trying to unite with their peers to change things. So I don't want to say we work with a huge population, but recently we've had a lot more calls and a few more Congolese folks. Actually, one of our founding board members, Sergio Irwindawan, is native Congolese, but grew up a large part of his life in Angola. So he has a pretty deep connection with the Congolese community.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Yeah.
I think we heard all three of you say that your organizations have boards of directors, right? So I guess I'm wondering, in Cora, I think the United Nations Association of Iowa has a particularly amazing board of directors, right?
Matt is on our board of directors.
So I'm wondering what all three of you maybe can talk about as far as working with boards in particular, and how that sort of relationship works with your organization, or just generally how you work with community partners and people who aren't on staff or maybe volunteers in your office every day, but sort of how you leverage outside resources in your work.
Well, I can go ahead. So our board of directors makes the major financial or strategic decisions for our organization. A lot of the people on our board, so we have a board president, we have a vice president, we have a secretary. It works just like a student council in a way. But the people on our board tend to be older professionals or basically young or middle-aged professionals, but people in a professional field, or retirees who now have time on their hands to dedicate themselves to work that they care about rather than just focusing on money making. So the people on our board are really great because they're volunteering their time with us. It means they're there because they care. They're not there because they get anything tangible out of it. That said, there's definitely a generation gap between our office staff, including our interns and our volunteers, of which we have many, and myself and the executive director, Matthew Wolf, and the board of directors. So, like I said, they tend to be older, and that is an exception. So negotiating sort of the difference in standpoints, the day-to-day office functioning standpoint, how you make things work, how you're talking to people. Our office does a lot of the outreach, actual action, and then taking that and sort of butting heads with the board who has more experience with how things are going to be sustainable financially in the long run, how we're going to reach out in a broader way to the entire state. So there's a tension there, and it has to be negotiated. That's really interesting. I actually have a background in conflict resolution, which I find very helpful, and in meeting facilitation, and working in a nonprofit. Being able to be an active listener, that's sort of a buzzword, but if you haven't heard it before, it's a really important skill. Listening to what people are saying, their wants and their needs, targeting that, and addressing them. And so that's what we do for the board, and that's what the board does for us. And then we work it out once we've heard all the opinions on the table. So yeah, does that address that question now? As for community members, most of our interaction with community members is very, very normal, simple. The community member comes to us, they say, how do I get involved? And we say, here are your options, and then it's over because they're involved and they are included. But we have had people in the past come to us saying, you are part of the UN, which is sort of true and sort of not. We are affiliated with the UN, but I have this political problem there's a woman named Miriam Abraham. She was arrested for marrying a Christian man, and she insisted, she lived in, I am going to blank on this and say the wrong African country.
She's in Sudan.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to say Sudan, but I'm also very worried about saying the wrong country and then being insensitive. So she was a Sudanese woman, and she married an American citizen who also was a Sudanese man, who was Christian, and she was arrested and sentenced to lashes and then execution for what's called apostasy, for marrying outside of your religion. And she insisted she had been Christian all her life, and her family insisted she had not. And she was in prison, and that man's cousin came to us asking us to do something about it. So what we can do is we can do local community outreach, we can do op-eds, we can do media, we can do event organizing. So we can do all that. And I also happen to be going to the UNA USA's annual conference in DC then, where we met with legislators. So I did take a petition to our state representatives there. So that's an entirely different level of community outreach. That's fairly unusual. But I also feel grateful for the opportunity to try to get involved in something very big and international, and also to see how these problems that we think are very far away from us are not. They're here in our community.
So yeah, I have a board of directors as well. Our board, by our bylaws, has to be at least majority low-wage worker members. And our president and vice president positions are also only for low-wage worker members. So, which creates a really interesting balance in the board, because I have, like I would say, I kind of use this term a lot, non-traditional leadership. So people who come from a large variety of educational backgrounds, and mostly people of color, all people of color on one side, and the other side we have affiliates. So we have people who have leadership positions within their organizations. So we have union organizers, we have a pastor, we have a priest, we have a housing advocate, and most of all of those people are white and come from more formal education. So there's a lot of practice in our board of acknowledging the privileges that we come with and fostering leadership from those who don't have some of the privileges that we do. So that creates some problems, right? Because sometimes you'll look around the room and the people who are engaging in the dialogue are all white people, and you have your leaders and your vice president and your president who are kind of sitting there waiting for their chance to talk. So we do have some of those tensions, but I think those are very healthy tensions to have, in the sense of acknowledging those privileges and acknowledging those power differences and dynamics, and really working to change those internally as much as we are externally as a part of our organization. I also have a kind of a unique sense, because I was a volunteer organizer to really help the group get going, and then I was elected as the first board of directors, and then I became staff. So I have had this sort of transitional phase, but I would say that in large, our board of directors is just amazing. We have people who come with all different experiences and all different skills and really make our organization what it is, and it's all volunteer time. And really without our board of directors, there's no way that the center would be where it's at, because we did not have any paid staff for the first year and a half of existence. And so it really is amazing to see people who are so dedicated. I mean, some of our board of directors spend 20 plus hours a week at the organization doing things. And so board of directors are very important. It's important to have a good relationship with your board of directors. It's also important to staff your board of directors appropriately. Like, I think one of the biggest problems in the nonprofit world is that we have all these board of directors with affluent white people helping people of color and people in poverty. That's a huge problem. Like, the only way we're ever going to overcome all these power dynamics and solving the roots, causes of poverty, is to empower those people who are impacted by that to make the decisions for themselves in conjunction, shoulder to shoulder with their allies. So there's definitely a place for people who come from privilege and have a higher education or whatever it is, but it's got to be in an ally sort of way. So we are constantly working through that tension internally in our organization, which is kind of heavy stuff for people who haven't read or done a lot of privilege assessment and things like that. So Our community outreach is really about door knocking and getting out into the community. A lot of people go, don't you have like normal office hours? And it's like, no, not at all, because if I'm sitting in my office, I'm not doing my job. Like, of course I have to do fundraising, I have to do finances, I have to do emails, but really I need to be talking to workers. I need to be where they're comfortable at, which oftentimes is not at the center because they don't even know us. So a lot of my job is driving to people's houses and trying to get them to sit down and talk with us. Or getting together with our leaders and giving them the skills to go out and do that. We do lots of door knocking, flyering, presentations at churches, and English classes and things like that to really engage with people.
So those were really comprehensive explanations. I'm not sure I have much more to add to that, but just to say that as a startup organization 6 years ago, the board was absolutely critical again to that operation, because you're putting people on the board, hopefully, that are the voices who have said, this is important, we need to do this. And then they're helping you decide how it will get done. So that was absolutely critical, and they were very involved in every step of the way and our direction and how we evolved. Now that we're part of a larger organization, we have a little more depth of knowledge and a lot more processes in place that we didn't have to refer to the board for. So we've actually been able to have the opportunity to use some of the board's skills, and we've started a speaker series and using the board to train. And we've had 2 sessions so far for the entire staff on just leadership development and training, and that's been wonderful because then they can use their skills to help in that way. So.
Fantastic, thank you all. What other questions do you have? Carmen has a question.
But only if no one else.
But only if I can tell, yes.
So I'm really interested, you all have touched on various skill sets, graphic design, writing, leadership, management, fundraising, finance, on and on and on. And I was just wondering if you could kind of reflect on which of those you use the most in a typical day, 2 or 3 or so, and did you develop those mostly through the academic programs that you chose? I know Diane mentioned a business minor, or were there other avenues that you used to develop those skills?
We'll go this way.
Let's see. So I would say, yeah, as you noticed when I was talking, I've been kind of all over the place as far as what I've done. So I would say kind of the things that I use currently the most in this position would be relationship building skills. I mean, that's huge, I think, for anyone in a leadership position at any organization, or if you're out in the community like some of these folks are. You have to get, it's all about getting support for your organization, especially if you're in a nonprofit. So it's all about people-to-people relationships, and those skills really can be developed anywhere along the way. They don't have to be part of your major. In fact, most of the times those types of skills are learned in a different way through volunteering, through your jobs, through just honing how you make friends and interact with people. So I would, if I had to pick one, that would be the top. No matter how much technology grows and becomes more important in our lives, it really is there, in my opinion, to support real interaction between people. And there's a reason why we're all sitting here together versus via Skype right now. And you cannot get the same energy and you can't form the same relationships via technology as you can, at least not in the time frame, as you can in one session with someone. So people still buy from people, and they want to meet people if they're going to get involved with them in any kind of partnerships.
This is a very tough question because I also come from, basically, I just hired a new staff, which I'm so grateful for. But it's still kind of, I do a lot. So I think probably the skills, another language. I know I keep going back to it, but having another language, at least some comprehension of another language. When I hire volunteers or interns or other staff, I'm just looking for you to have some other skills in another language. I don't expect you to be fluent, but I think that's been something that's opened up tons of doors for me. But beyond that, good writing skills, good public speaking skills, strong computer skills, just basics. Like if you know how to use all of Microsoft Suite and you can do I do lots of graphic design too, although probably not as professionally as you guys, but I've had to learn how to do that to do our publications. And then relationship building. This is something that I think so many people walk away from school not learning. understand power structures. Understand how decisions are made at your university, who decides your tuition, who decides what your program looks like, understand what your city council looks like, why does it look like that, how are decisions made on where buildings are built, how are decisions made on what policies are passed, understand that at state level, understand that at national level, because that impacts every part of your life. And if you don't understand that leaving school, it's tough. Because I didn't understand a lot of that, because it was never taught to me. And so I think that we have to work more actively to understand power structures, because that will have a huge part of what you're going to be doing, especially if you're in international relations or studies or things like that. And so that's always like one of my big things, is really understanding where do decisions happen, and making relationships. And not always good ones with some of those people. What I mean is not always good ones, I mean is sometimes relationships of tension. So we're able to get the board of supervisors at the county to sit down with our group, because we have this relationship that's built on trust, but also tension. Like, you know, so you have to understand who elected officials are. All that stuff plays in. I'm not saying that you have to go into career politics, but it does matter. And the ways that I've gotten all that stuff is find a mentor. Especially, I'm obviously a feminist, so especially young women, you have to find a mentor. Find someone who's doing something similar to what you're doing, or someone who you can look up to, who's done things that you think is amazing. They don't even have to be in your same career path. And latch on to them and have it be a meaningful relationship, and be responsible, and be respectful of their time. Because I can tell you, meeting in my senior year here, meeting my mentor in the second language acquisition department totally changed my life. She's been the best reference for me and everything, and she continues to support me, and I can continue to go to her when I come to issues in my career right now. So find a mentor, relationship building, volunteer, travel, and do your own reading and writing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Diane and Misty have said. And Diane said relationship building, Misty said understanding power structures. So I'm going to go ahead and say logic and communication. Basically, and that boils down to also problem-solving skills. So this has a lot to do with understanding underlying power structures and a lot to do with relationship building. But when you are talking about an issue, when you're talking about anything, understanding what you're really talking about, there's always a lot of flip with what somebody is saying, because people have a hard time getting to the point, and there are a lot of different opinions in the air. But being able to synthesize all of that and boil it down, and to know what the issue is, to break it down in your mind, what needs to be met, what resources is this going to require, who's going to be the best sort of person for this. You can't do all of that without having a deeper understanding of what's at hand. So you need really good logic skills. How do you get logic skills? Reading, writing. I'm a philosophy major. Studying philosophy, challenging yourself with more difficult concepts is really helpful. Also, I see Megan. Megan is the president of the University of Iowa UN Association. I'm glad you're here. And also by challenging yourself. You can't understand things unless you have a very broad perspective, unless your background is open, unless your mind is open, and you have to have a lot of different experiences under your belt to be able to do that, to have an open mind, to be able to listen to somebody and truly perceive what they're saying underneath all of the different things that go on with the person's personality. So, for instance, I studied abroad in China. I lived there for 6 months, and I told myself when I was there, go towards what makes you uncomfortable, and do that in life. You have an instantaneous knee-jerk reaction to something, you're like, oh, I don't like that. Sit down, think about why. Push yourself into that thing. That's the only real way to go about opening yourself to other perspectives. And once you've got all those perspectives, when people come to the table saying seemingly contradictory things, you'll be able to have, again, a deeper understanding of what's really going on. Also, a brief tangent on studying abroad. Studying abroad is not enough. Like, both Diane and Misty have talked about the ways that they have traveled. It's not the same as going to Spain and going to a club 4 nights out of the week and speaking English with your American friends. People tell you to put studying abroad on your resume. That's not going to cut it. I interview my interns, I ask them about studying abroad, and if I don't hear that they purposely isolated themselves, if I don't hear that they put themselves out there, then it doesn't even matter. Like, studying abroad as a party is not a valuable experience. So, I have one other.
Yeah, let's hear some closing thoughts.
Two things, and then one thing is that is so true, and also I've traveled so much outside of studying abroad. So I've also taken, since studying abroad, I've been to Colombia, I've been to Costa Rica, I've been to the Dominican, I spent a month in India working on housing eradication. I mean, I've done, so it's like studying abroad is not enough. I want to emphasize that. And then also, I wanted to say that one of the best pieces of advice I got in my career was bring proposals, not problems. No boss wants to hear about your problem, we already know. You know, like bring a proposal. So I still struggle with that because I get really caught up into the problem, and I am a great problem solver, but remembering that my job is not to bring you a problem, it's to bring a solution.
And I just wanted to echo, and I know a lot of what we're saying is like, well, you have to have enough experiences to really gain this, knowledge and skill base, but from a more practical standpoint, while you're in school, this might be helpful, because I would like to echo what Misty said about communications, journalism, writing, speaking, graphics, any of that, at least for us, this is really what we look for. Typically, our interns and our then future employees have a combination of either international studies, international relationships, poli-sci, along with a journalism or communications or some type of multimedia degree or minor or emphasis or something. And that's really the combination that is perfect for us. And if you've also shown that you regularly interact across cultures in some way, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I would also add, I think we're taking a very liberal arts approach to this, and I think a lot of you, maybe all of you are liberal arts students, but to sort of open it up a little bit, having international studies experience, and then having any other skill, a hard skill, reading, writing, communications, journalism, or mathematics, science, computer studies, and of course language on top of all of that, in addition, is really important. That will distinguish you from other people. And some of you are going to hate to hear this, but math and science are very important in nonprofit and international studies fields now. People want somebody who can do sort of like both. You have one foot in the humanities and you have the other foot in the sciences. So if you do have a propensity towards things like that, don't neglect that, cultivate it. Any additional skill you have, maybe it's just you're great at cooking. It'll turn out to be useful somehow.
Or event management or something, that's always really helpful.
Fantastic. This has been one of the sharpest panel things we've ever had. I can
say that.
No, I don't. I would say we really benefited from the experiences that you personally shared, the advice that they gave, and on a deeper level, wisdom. I think it really hit on some deeper themes here that I hope you were listening and picked up on that, and that it resonated for you as things that you can carry forward from today's conversation. Eventually, it will be also up online, so if you want to come back and revisit some of the I think great advice they had about skills and their experiences, you can do that on the ISPA website. What we have kind of next is a transition in which you're again welcome to enjoy cookies and juice. We ask that you would fill out the evaluation that's on the inside of your program. If you're here for Advantage Iowa credit, you can fill that out on the back table. We're going to transition to Matt's event here in about 15 minutes or so. And it would be a great way to think about how can you immediately start applying some of this and how it's going to make you more employable. Of course, big fan of employability over here at the Career Center. But again, how can you make use of this immediately for your own benefit? And I think maybe our panelists can stick around for just a few minutes, also enjoy some cookies and juice, and maybe answering individual questions that you have. Thank you for coming, and thank you to Allie and Carmen for organizing this. Let's give everybody a round of applause.